do your thing here, but nobody's any better at this than you are.
Have fun, take a deep breath.
Give him hell at the end. You like to?
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here.
Brett, be affirmative.
You told me to get on.
Info. Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down. 14.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. So, is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate. Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Hell yeah.
11 got it. Rowdy there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Therefore, great job, guys.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. Thank you for joining in for a late edition of Racing in the Draft, following the Xfinity final race of the year, where Riley Herbst got the win, but most importantly, Justin Allgaier finally got his championship that he has been trying for 14 years and 7 times in the Final Four. Finally gets the win, or gets the championship, and was quite a cool celebration to see him and Dale Jr. and everyone else get that championship finally for Justin. Man, what a long weekend for those guys. I'm literally like, I don't know, 5-10 laps into practice on yesterday, hit an oil slick and wrecked their primary car that they had spent literally 3 months fine-tuning. Was super fast, and it was pretty much destroyed. They pulled the backup car out, and within about 30 minutes had it back out on the track for practice, and then they fine-tuned it overnight, and he went out, and boy, did he have to get through some adversity to get that win. So congratulations to Justin Allgaier on getting the championship. Congratulations to Ty Majeski last night for getting his first championship. Man, what a cool start to championship weekend for the NASCAR series out in Phoenix. But we've got one more race to go. The final race tomorrow afternoon under the sun in Phoenix. Another weekend. I think pretty much this whole playoff has been great weather for NASCAR, which has just been impressive because literally the first, 2/3 of the season were just mired with weather issues and weather delays and everything else under the sun. But we have finally gotten to the final race, and weather looks like it's going to be really, really good tomorrow. So excited to watch the season finale with 4 guys. And 4 guys that I really wasn't sure that were going to be there. I mean, Tyler Reddick was the regular season champion, so he kind of had a pretty good path to get there. But Joe Logano, pretty much was out after the round of 12, and because of the 48 car not weighing enough, he gets in, and then literally gets to win the next race, and the rest is history. And he's made it to the Final Four. Ryan Blaney really did not seem to have a whole lot of speed until he got to Martinsville, and pretty much had to win to get in, and he did just that. William Byron started off the year on fire and then just cooled off over the summer, and really just kind of stayed the course throughout the playoffs, just kind of getting enough to get into the Final Four, and pretty much had to, last weekend at Martinsville, had to get a little bit of help from some other Chevy drivers to hold off some other drivers to hold that spot. And then only by miraculous miracle that Christopher Bell decided to wall ride, or the Hell Malin, and got negated to 22nd place. And because of all that, William Byron got in. So we've got a very interesting mix of the Final Four headed into Phoenix. But we'll say 39 drivers. There are 40 drivers listed for this race, but there are 39 drivers on the track, and 4 for a championship, and the other ones are going to go for a win. Tonight we saw Riley Herbst, who was not in the Final Four for the Xfinity Series, get the win, and I don't feel bad for Riley Herbst. He's not one of my favorites in the Xfinity Series. Pretty much got overshadowed by Justin Allgaier pulling off that victory, or pulling off that championship. So either way, let's head back to Martinsville real quick and kind of look at what happened and transpired last weekend. Ryan Blaney Martinsville might be Ryan Blaney's best track, and probably the second best track for Ryan Blaney is Phoenix. So the way the playoffs are laid out for Ryan Blaney, if he can just make the Final Four or a Final 8, he's almost a shoo-in to make it to the Final Four and probably be the favorite to win. So, quite interesting to see what the number 12 car could do tomorrow. But our optimal lineup for the Martinsville race pretty much looked like Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, both with pretty dominating races. Ryan Blaney literally just kind of hung around in the close to the top 10 all day and had probably one of the fastest cars, and he kind of turned it on at the most important time, those last probably 30 so laps. He was at 1.5 seconds down, and I think ended up winning by 3 seconds. Quite a run at the end for Ryan Blaney. What's up, James? I am doing well. Just finished watching the Xfinity race. What a great finish. Was kind of hoping Justin would get the win also, but it was pretty cool for the Gator to get his first victory, his first championship, along with Dale Jr. They're doing an interview with Dale Jr. now, so it's pretty cool to see that big old smile on Dale Jr.'s face and Junior Motorsports. So congrats to them. But hope you're doing well too, James. We've got one more race to go for this year, and then we get to have a little bit of a free time for a couple of months and enjoy the holidays with friends and family, and then we'll get back to it at about Valentine's Day. So I'll be ready for a break, but I'll be ready to get back to it in Daytona once we get there. All right, but so Ryan Blaney, Brad Keselowski, Chase Elliott, Noah Gragson ended up with a really good run. I did not see Noah Gragson having that good of a run. The Stewart-Haas cars have actually kind of been pretty good here down the stretch. They have made a fool out of me. Shane Van Gisbergen fought all day. I mean, I don't know how many lucky dogs Shane ended up having throughout that race. I know of at least 2 or 3 lucky dogs at Martinsville that Shane ended up getting back on the lead lap and ended up getting a 12th place finish. So good on him. And Austin Cindric, man, I'm telling you what, Austin Cindric has really turned it on in these playoffs, and it's going to be really fascinating to see if that can carry over to next year. So it'll be fun to watch. But, other guys that ended up finishing well, I mean, Kyle Larson, he pretty much had to win to get in. He was just a little bit too far back in points, and nobody else was falling out. So Kyle Larson was going to need that win, and he almost got it all the way down to about 20 laps to go, and the tires just kind of fell off, and Ryan Blaney was just way too fast on the long run. Denny Hamlin, same thing, needed a win to get in. Had to start from the back after completely repairing his car after he totaled it in practice, and came out with a 5th place finish. So good on him. William Byron in 6th, Ross Chastain in 8th. It was a great race in Martinsville. I hope they always keep that as the next to the race, last race of the year, the last race to get into the Final Four. It really kind of makes a lot of excitement. Sorry about that. But that's Martinsville, the optimal lineup challenge. Like I said last week or a couple weeks ago, it was pretty much over, and Christopher Bell locked that up, and he still has a 3-point advantage over Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, and Brad Keselowski. We'll see if anybody else can add their name to this list, but I think we're pretty much done with the optimal lineup, and we won't see it again until next year. In fact, you guys probably won't see me again until next year anyways. All right. Oops, that's the wrong picture. Let's head to Phoenix for NASCAR Championship race weekend. James says, "Yep, I know. I need to gain 11 points on my Survivor League to take 7th or better to be in the money. I have no clue who to take, but I can't wait to the end to ask you. Why don't you put who you've got left? I'm guessing you don't have Ryan Blaney, because that would be the easy shoe-in pick for tomorrow's race. And you probably don't have Reddick. You don't have Byron. And I don't think you have a Joey Logano either. So you kind of don't have any of the final four. I wish, no. Not very good list. I mean, give me the list. We'll kind of see if there's anybody that ended up having a decent practice or anything like that, and see if we can find maybe a squeaker. I mean, I didn't really see Riley Herbst winning the race tonight, and did not have. In fact, I had very little of him in my lineups tonight. Luckily enough, I enjoy NASCAR because Draftkings was just not very kind to me for the Xfinity race. It's either been it's been either win big in Xfinity or lose big in Xfinity. There's been no real in between. Where with with the Cup Series, it's been pretty consistent. Typically always getting at least half my money back. Most of the time, I'm almost breaking even or winning money. So it's been tough in the Xfinity series, but it's also been because it's probably been the most competitive series, in my opinion. I think it's been the most fun to watch this year. So I'll be excited to see what happens next year. There's just a lot of unknowns with Xfinity. You've got so many drivers that you just don't have a whole lot of data on. But either way, Phoenix Raceway. It is a short, flat track, 11-degree corners, 11 degrees in 1 and 2, 9 degrees in 3 and 4. So the banking, there's not a whole lot of banking. What's considered the kind of the front stretch is got this weird banked corner going into a dog leg that you can cut before you get to turn 2, and then turn 3, and you have a long straightaway into getting into turn 4. It's a very unique track, to say the least. It's a little bit like Richmond, but not really. Richmond's probably the closest track to compare it to because of the banking, and just you're almost always in a corner, or always turning, except for this little bit of a back straightaway, which is kind of like Richmond. It's really a unique track. It's a lot of fun to watch. But the race length is 312 laps. Dominator points will be 218.478 for laps led and 140.4 for fast laps. Definitely are going to be looking for at least one Dominator, and then probably looking for 2 guys that will kind of finish up front, probably start up front. And then we're kind of looking for 3 somewhere between 10th and 31st. And then you can kind of hunt and peck for a couple of the guys in the back that potentially could make a run through the field. James says qualifying order: Burton, Cindric, Briscoe, Haley, Osavar Jones, LaJoy, Noah, Hemrick, Busher, Bush, Bubba, Priest. Honestly, out of that group, I like Cindric and Briscoe. Those would be my 2 picks out of that group. Do you have any earthly idea what the guy that you're let's see, I know I need to gain 11 points in my server to take 7th. Do you have any idea what kind of drivers they have? Because you almost don't want to match up. You want to be differential, even if it may not be the best play. If you have an idea of who they might be playing, to kind of go against the grain against them might be an interesting play. But it's kind of like being contrarian when you're playing DraftKings. Track comparisons, though, when we're comparing tracks, you can compare Richmond, Martinsville, Nashville. You can, any of the flat short tracks you can put into the mix. You can put in Nashville Super Speedway as one that you can compare to. The tire wear and the slickness of this track was very interesting this year. I had not heard so many complaints from at least the Truck and Xfinity series on how slick the racetrack was, and especially pit road. That was kind of a new twist this weekend. I'm not real sure what was causing that. It'd be interesting to see if the high heat temperatures that Phoenix experienced for an extended period of time this summer may have been any of that. So hard to say. James says 41 man pool. I'm in ninth. Yeah, I can try to look exactly. I mean, that would be, I don't know if you're able to see how many drivers they have and who they have played and who they haven't played, but I mean, out of that list, I mean, Cindric's the hot hand right now. And Penske's kind of hot right now. So pairing Cindric up with the other two would probably be the best play. He's starting up front. He's going to start near his two teammates who are going for championships. And we saw tonight in the Xfinity Series, if you watched it, you had the 1 and the 88, which were both Junior Motorsports cars, kind of running up towards the front, and they actually, and the 2 car, but the 2 car was teammates with Austin Hill, but Austin Hill was in the championship. So you had 3 Chevy cars with 2 teammates that were coming up to try to challenge Cole Custer for the championship. And between those 3 cars that were not in the championship hunt, play havoc with the 00 Cole Custer car. And you could see a little bit of that potentially tomorrow with Austin Cindric, or any of the other teammates. But out of that list that you're saying, Harrison Burton is kind of a sister team to the Penske guys. Cindric is definitely a teammate to the Penske guys. Briscoe has no allegiance other than Ford. Haley he's with Hendrick Motorsports, so if anything, he potentially could help play as a blocker for William Byron. Same thing with Hocevar. Jones is a Toyota. So I think Cindric's probably your best choice out of that group, to be really fully honest. Briscoe's pretty decent at this style track, but we'll get into the driver by driver. We'll kind of compare. I don't think Burton's the best call. I think it's Cindric, maybe Briscoe, and maybe Noah. Noah had a pretty good race here in the spring, and he had a pretty good race at Martinsville, so there is that potential. But I think Cindric's probably your best choice. Optimal lineups from Phoenix of the last 4 races here. We didn't have any dominators in the spring. It was 2 place differentials, it was 2 value, and 2 guys that finished in the top 5. So we only had 2 drivers finish in the top 5 that made the optimal lineup. And, really only one driver that was 10,000. Martin Truex Jr. was 9,800. Then we had 2 middle tier, Ty Gibbs and Tyler Reddick at 8,000 and 8,500, and then 2 cheap guys with Todd Gilliland and Michael McDowell. The interesting name to look here that we'll see quite often in these optimal lineups is Michael McDowell. He made the optimal lineup for the spring race earlier this year. He made the optimal lineup in the fall race last year. See if there's any other. And I'm guessing you don't have any Michael McDowell, do you, James? I think Michael McDowell is actually starting. You do have a Michael McDowell, but I think he's starting too far back, to be perfectly honest. It's a little risky. He started ninth in the spring. He started 19th in the fall last year. He started 7th in the spring of 2023. And those are only 3, but he's made 3 of the 4 of the last optimal lineups, and he's starting 36th, if I remember correctly, for this race tomorrow. 41-man pool. I'm in 9th, and yeah, okay, got that one already. All right, but the optimal lineups. I mean, as you can see, it really is kind of tiered. You've got 2 drivers kind of from the top end of the pool. You got 2 guys that are middle to high, not quite value, and then you have 2 guys that are value. Same thing kind of happens down here again. You got 2 guys that were 11,002, 11,003. Then you had 2 guys in the 8,000 range, and then you had 2 cheapies. And then kind of the same thing here. We had 4 drivers kind of in the topper half, 2 that were kind of top tier, 2 in the middle tier, and then 2 cheapies. The same thing again down here. We had 2 expensive guys. We had 2 between 7,700 and 9,000, and then we had 2 kind of cheaper guys. So it's really, you could almost kind of cut the full DraftKings lineups down and kind of look, okay, the guys that are $9,000 and up, I need to find 2 of them, and then I need to pair with 2 more from 7,500 to 9,000 or so, and then find 2 guys below 7,500 and put those in and kind of play kind of a mix and match. Because that's been kind of the case in the way it kind of goes. And we've got some guys that are top 15 in DraftKings points that you wouldn't think necessarily would make. I mean, you literally have like a Michael McDowell. He started 7th and he finished 13th, but because he was $5,400 in the spring of it's fascinating. Literally a year and a half ago, Michael McDowell was $5,400 and lost 6 spots and still made the optimal lineup because he was cheap. And none of the other cheap guys really made it, other than Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who gained only 4 spots. So, you know, the cheap guys let you be able to afford the expensive guys. So those are the optimal lineups to kind of give you reference on kind of how the spread kind of works. And if we really start to look through all these, you have Eric Jones starting in 30th, Chase Briscoe starting 24th, Todd Gillen that started 29th, and JJ Ailey who started 34th. We don't see a whole lot of guys starting in the 30s that are making the optimal lineup. Now, it changes a little bit when we spread that out over the top 15, but not a whole lot. Actually, no. If you look, starting 31st or worse, we didn't have anybody in the spring of 24. We only had 1 the fall of last year. The spring of last year, nobody from 31st or worse made the top 15 in DraftKings points. In the fall of 2022, once again, 0 again. So there's not a whole lot of guys that start 31st or worse that end up making it into the optimal lineup, which was not the case with the Truck and Xfinity Series. I mean, you had Justin Allgaier, who started 37th. You had Eric Almirola, who started 38th, and both of them made the optimal lineup for the Xfinity Series. Well, I haven't done the full breakdown, but they both, between those 2 and the race winner, who led, God, I think he led 170 laps tonight. Definitely a dominator race for Herbst. But those 3 really were, but they were also some of the most expensive. So you had to come down and go find value. So it really wasn't a whole lot of guys that started from the back. Let's take a look real quick. Hold on, I want to see that. I close all those windows, I guess. Let's see. Contests. So the highest point getter in the Chrome Horn from tonight We had Allgaier, Almirola, Herbst, Zillich, but then he had Joey Gase, who was I think one of the cheapest guys on the board, only finishing 27th and 21st. So the Xfinity Series, you had a 34th place starter, a 32nd place starter, a 38th, and a 37th. Now Almirola and Allgaier were a little different, but you know, it's going to be so much different in the Cup Series. Even though we have some guys back here who have the potential to make up a decent amount of room, like I don't mind the Daniel Suarez starting in 34th, Ryan Preece starting in 33rd, Michael Bedell starting in 35th, Josh Berry, who spun in qualifying, starting 39th. Beyond that, I mean, Austin Dillon potentially could be in play, but I'm only going to probably only take maybe one of these guys in my lineups, and then kind of really focus in on, I mean, Ryan Blaney starting 17th, and he's just lights out here, is almost kind of the free square this weekend. But yeah, there are a few guys in the 30s I would take, so I don't know necessarily how well this ends up playing, like it has in past history. We'll wait and see. All right. Guys that were fastest in practice. I mean, once again, this didn't show any fruition from last week at Martinsville, and not really sure that it's going to show a whole lot this time around either. But Austin Cindric, fifth fastest in practice, and he's starting 11th. So Austin Cindric he's had a great playoffs, other than he didn't make the last two rounds, but he's still consistently finished really, really well. Like I said, Ryan Blaney's the free square starting in 17th. He's lights out here. And the crazy thing is he's never won at Phoenix. But 5 of the last 5 races, he's finished in the top 5. It's crazy. And he was fastest in practice. He was fastest in 10 laps. Yeah, well, Ryan Blaney's just going to be tough to beat tomorrow. The slowest guys, Derek Kraus, Kaz Gralla, JJ Yaley, and Chad Fincham. All right, here's your value picks. I don't really see anything that really screams anything big. I mean, Corey LaJoie starting 20th and he practiced in 6th. I mean, the problem is Corey LaJoie just has an awful average finish at Phoenix. He ends up becoming a moving chicane. Now, I don't know if because he's in the 51 that changes this time around, but yeah, I don't know if I trust the Corey LaJoie play. But all right, our driver by driver breakdown. Oh no, is that gonna happen again? Yeah. All right, whatever. There's my mistake this week. The little logo has to fly in. I hate it. I thought I turned it off, but either way, Ryan Blaney, 11,200. He is starting in 17th. Like I just said prior, he was first in single lap practice speed. He did 46 total laps of practice, and he was first in 10 lap consecutive average. If we look at the 5 races that have happened at Phoenix, especially in the next gen era, he has 5 top 5s, 5 top 10s, 5 top 20s, a 74.0 Draftkings average, a 3rd place average finish, and he doesn't have a win here. 3rd place average finish and has no wins. And he finished 5th here in the spring race. 17 total starts, no wins, but a 10.5 average finish for all of his starts at Phoenix. He's got 3 wins on the season. He's the most expensive. He's going for the championship. I really honestly think he has to be almost a championship favorite. He just needs to be methodical about getting through the pack starting in 17th. It's a little scary back there, but most of the time those guys are going to play pretty nice they're not just going to roll over for these Final Four drivers, but they do get a little bit more cautious when it comes to it. Not so much in the Xfinity Series, but there are a lot of people who are roughing up each other regardless of if they were racing for the championship or not. But it's a little different in the Cup Series. William Byron, next most expensive at $11,000, starting in 8th. His practice speed was 4th in single lap, 5th in 10-lap consecutive average, and he did 50 laps of practice, so decent amount of practice on him, and he was pretty consistent throughout all of practice. He does have one win here at Phoenix. I think it was friggin' 23. 9.4 average finish, 49.2 Draftkings average. Finished 18th here in the spring. And his 13 total starts kind of about the same as what his other stats are, with 11.8 average finish. Let's see. They both have a Cindric and a Briscoe available, so might need to shoot the moon or risk it taking one of them. Yeah, if they both have a Cindric, my guess is they're probably going to go after a Cindric. Wyatt, what's up, buddy? You're here. Yes, you're here. Didn't know you were alive. I was waiting until after the Xfinity race, and then, of course, Justin Allgaier wins, and I'm kind of an Allgaier fan, so I wanted to hear his interview, and then his kids. It was really cool. It was really sweet. And then Dale Jr., so all those things. Once that all ended, I finally was able to hit the live button. But Wyatt, glad you joined in with us. We're also trying to figure out and look at what James needs to take for his Survivor League. And it's a little tough because I think Cindric is probably the best play, but his other two guys that he's chasing both have Cindric available. So yeah, that could be a little tough. But William Byron, and William Byron hasn't had a stellar playoff. I mean, honestly, I think this is Ryan Blaney's championship to lose. I don't. Now, of course, it is an even year, and Joey Logano has something about even years. But I think he's going to have to go through Ryan Blaney first. Yeah, I'm looking to the race. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the race. Yeah, it's going to be a great race. What a race it was. It was awesome. Yeah, the Xfinity Series all year has put on, I think, the best racing. Cup Series is also just the Cup Series. And it's always fun and good to watch, but I think the best racing has been in the Xfinity races all year. I think William Byron's is not a bad pick for DraftKings. I think he finishes probably the championship second or third. I think he probably gets a top 10, maybe even a top 5. I just don't know if he's going to have everything for Blaney. Joey Logano also here, starting the furthest up of all of the playoff drivers, 10,800. And he was decent in practice. He was 9th in single lap, 2nd in 10-lap consecutive average. He does have the one win here in the fall of 2022 when he won his championship. But his average finish is not stellar here. 14.4 average finish. He finished 34th in the spring. His 31 total starts, he's got a 13.5 average finish. It's not that he's bad. It's the question is, do you just go with the narrative that this is an even year and that's just what Joey Logano does? I will have him in some lineups, but I mean, the thing is, I think he potentially gets out and leads laps early. And by the end of it all, I think Ryan Blaney ends up getting him at the end. So my issue and problem is it's kind of be like Martin Truex Jr., who's starting on the pole. I just don't know if they hold that position. But because it's DraftKings, somebody's going to lead laps. Now the question is, can Joey get in front of Truex early enough to lead enough laps for it to be profitable? Because realistically, you're going to only be able to run 2 of these guys that are priced $10,000 or more. It's just if you put a third person in, it ends up costing too much, and you're really regulated to taking too many of the guys under $7,500. So you kind of almost have to piece this thing, like I was saying earlier, two kind of $9,500 or more, two between 75 and 9,500, and then two that are cheaper than 7,500, and kind of figure out who fits that bill the best. That's kind of how I'm going to probably construct my lineups tomorrow morning, or tonight later. Tyler Reddick 10,500. He's kind of like Joey Logano here. He's okay at Phoenix. He doesn't have a win. He finished 10th here in the spring race. He's got a 12.2 average finish, 17.9 average finish. I mean, I think he holds serve, and I think he finishes kind of right around probably where William Byron finishes. It's probably like a 5th through 10th. And once again, how do you take a Tyler Reddick and a Ryan Blaney, or a Tyler Reddick and a William Byron? Or I'm not sure you can have three. You can have three of the championship drivers in a lineup, but it's so expensive you're going to miss out on probably what needs to happen in that middle tier. So, Christopher Bell, 10,300. I honestly would have thought that Christopher Bell would have unloaded a little bit faster, because he has been so good at these 1.5 or these 1 to 3/4 mile tracks. But they didn't unload as fast as I would have hoped they would have. 10,300. He's starting in 7th. He was 15th in single lap, 12th in 10 lap consecutive average. I mean, it's not that he's slow or bad. And he easily is one that's going to want to go stink the show up and go win this race and be like, oh, see, I am the best at this track. He dominated, well, didn't dominate. He did really well in the spring race. He was very, very quick. And then kind of from then on, it was, Richmond and Iowa and a lot of those tracks that he led a ton of laps and got some wins. So, but I think Christopher Bell is kind of, I think he's going to probably finish close to where he starts. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I think Christopher Bell could easily probably finish 2nd. Also, or maybe even 1st, and Ryan Blaney gets 2nd. Maybe Ryan Blaney just continues with his I'm going to just be dominant of this track and not win the race. It's a very good possibility. Kyle Larson, $10,000, starting in 4th. He was 3rd fastest in single lap. He was 4th fastest in 10 lap consecutive average. All signs point to a pretty good top 5 finish for Kyle Larson. 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 4 top 20s in the last 5 races here. 12.8 average finish. But once again, it's expensive. He's definitely one of the guys you can mix and match in. He's easily capable of winning this race. He's also easily capable of finishing 32nd in this race. I'm a Kyle Larson fan. I don't think I love the play. I don't hate the play. I'm not going to have a whole lot of it. I'm probably going to be overweight on Ryan Blaney, just to be bluntly honest. He's also finished starting in 17th. He's got the best average finish. He was fastest in practice, and he just slipped getting into turn 3, or coming off of turn 3, getting onto the straight, and he lost a little speed, and he qualified 17th. But, I mean, once again, that's all it takes. I mean, heck, I almost thought that Justin Allgaier earlier in this race started 37th in the race, worked his way all the way up to top, I think, 7 or 8, ended up getting a penalty on a restart, sped on pit road, went almost 2 laps down, and came back to win the championship. So, lucky cautions happen sometimes. Denny Hamlin, 9,800, starting in 14th. Practice speeds were pretty good. 8th in single lap, 67 total laps of practice. He's down a ton of practice laps. Third on the 10-lap consecutive average. His average finish is right there with most of these other guys that are $9,800 or more. The only one that's really stellar is Ryan Blaney. Well, there's one more guy. We'll get to him in a minute. But his practice speeds were good. There is a little bit of place differential here. But honestly, Denny Hamlin's just... This is an okay track for him. This is not a track that I go, ooh, this is a Richmond, or this is a Bristol, or this is a Martinsville. So he could easily perform well here, and there is some place differential here. The problem is, do I replace a Denny Hamlin with one of the chase drivers? I mean, almost every year, one of the chase drivers has a bad race. That just seems to be the way it happens. I don't know. It's going to be tough to put Denny Hamlin in some lineups just because I don't feel secure with it. It's kind of like Chase Elliott starting in 5th. It's so hard to take the most expensive guy and then fit any more than one more of these guys. But the contrarian play is going to be running a Chase Elliott along with a Ryan Blaney. Now, you can also go with the argument of starting a Denny Hamlin, who's starting in 14th, along with a Ryan Blaney starting in 17th, because they've got some place differential, and they have a potential of getting, top 5 finishes. So I could easily see that being a play to go with. But another really, really good driver here, Ross Chastain, the winner last fall of this race, finishing ahead of Ryan Blaney in the championship race. He won the race. He was not part of the championship 4, but he got the win, kind of like Riley Herbst did earlier tonight. And then just got overshadowed because the champion was much more important. But Ross was not super fast in practice. He was 29th in single lap, 18th in 10-lap consecutive average, and then went out qualified 3rd. He's got a 7.2 average finish over the last 5 races. Won 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s, 4 top 20s. And he's got a pretty good average finish. And he did finish 6th in the spring. I think Ross Chastain is an interesting play. I think he may get a little bit more owned than I would particularly want. But I think Ross is definitely in play. You just have to get a little bit different with your lineups. But we're starting to get into the, like I said, below 9,500 and above 7,500. I think you could pair 2 guys in that region with two of the chase drivers. So Ross Chastain almost kind of fits there. It's just really risky starting in 3rd. When you especially think that, okay, 3 of the 4 championship drivers are probably going to finish in the top 5. So it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for other people to kind of get there. Martin Truex Jr., $9,000, once again, starting from the pole. And in the last 5 races here, he doesn't have any top 5s, only 2 top 10s, and a 16th place average finish. And he was pretty decent in practice, but he was that way at Martinsville last week, and he just kind of got out of the way, to be perfectly honest. He wasn't in the playoff chase, and I think he's starting too far up, and I think he's not going to be the guy that's going to get in the way if this thing starts to get interesting. So I just don't. I think Martin Truex Jr. is starting too far up. As much as I would like to see him win before he retires, I just don't know if I like the Truex Jr. play. Ty Gibbs, 8,700. Qualified in 6th. I mean, 2 years ago, he walked off and won this race and won the Xfinity Championship, and 12 hours later lost his dad. God, what a tragic weekend for that guy. Talking about super high emotions and super low emotions. But either way, Ty Gibbs has won here in the Xfinity Series. His average finish is 17.3 in the Cup Series, so not great, and only one top 20, where he could finish third in the spring last year. He wasn't super fast on long run speed, and for some reason the 54 car just seems to be haunted by monsters. Kind of playing on the whole Monster Energy car, but yeah, they've definitely had gremlins for the last like 10 weeks. So I don't know if they're testing some things out and doing things a little differently that are still within the rule book, but I think they may be using the 54 car as kind of a test option on certain things. Brad Keselowski, 8,600, starting in 27th. He was 274th in a 10-lap consecutive average. That's really, really bad. I think he was 27th. And there's one of my more blatant mistakes. 274th in 10-lap consecutive average. I didn't even think there were that many cars on the track. But his practice speed, it's supposed to be 27th. And he was 20th in single lap. His only top 5 at Phoenix in the last 5 races was the spring race. Prior to that, it had not been real pretty. Now there's room for place differential. He's much better on the shorter flat tracks, meaning a Martinsville style. This just hasn't set up very well in the next gen era for Brad. Now, you can take him because there is place differential here, and it's better than starting 30th, because we saw how many people have actually made the top 15 in DraftKings points by starting outside the top 30. So you could always play that kind of narrative. But his practice speeds were not super stellar or fast. Chase Briscoe, $8,400. He won here in the spring of 2022, the first race here at Phoenix in the next gen era. And since then, he's rattled off some pretty good stats. 4 top 10s, 4 top 20s, a 9th place average finish. He finished 9th here in the spring, and he's starting in 12th. Practice speeds were fair, 10th in single lap, 20th in 10-lap consecutive average. You could be a little contrarian here and play some Chase Briscoe. I think he might get overlooked a little bit. And this is probably my second choice for you, James, if you're still out there watching. I think Briscoe would probably be my second option of the group of drivers that you're kind of have left to run. Excuse me. Chris Buescher, $8,200, starting in 24th. 24th in single lap, 13th in 10-lap consecutive average. Nope, you're here, just listening. Yep, nope, I got you. There's lots of good football on to watch while you're listening to me ramble on about NASCAR. 24th in single lap, 13th in 10-lap consecutive average. Practice speeds were okay. He's got an average finish of 10.6. He finished second here in the spring, which was pretty good. And the last 5 races also, he's got 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 4 top 20s. I mean, Buescher's not an awful play for you, James. But for DraftKings, I don't mind taking some shots with Chris Buescher. I think I like Chris Buescher as a play more than I like Brad Keselowski. I know there's 3 place differential potential spots, but I think Chris Buescher probably ends up with a better finish. Kyle Busch, will he get a win before the year's end? No, he won't. He was starting in 25th. He was 23rd in single lap, 15th in 10-lap consecutive average. He does not have a top 5 here in the last 5 races. He does have 3 top 10s. Is he in play? I don't think so, to be honest. I mean, he's going to be in play for DraftKings because of his starting spot. Yeah, I think I run, maybe 10% of like a Kyle Busch. I run 10 to 15% of a Chris Buescher. I run 5 to 10% of a Brad Keselowski. and just kind of mix and match these guys in with this kind of grouping that I've kind of talked about from 7,500 to 9,500, and you just kind of mix and match, and hopefully one of those lineups ends up hitting for optimal. I'm not saying Kyle Busch is definitely out of play. I just don't know if he's fully in play. Bubba Wallace 7,800 starting at 29th. I think this is a much better play than the Kyle Busch play. Bubba's also been, he hasn't been lights out by any means, but he's been very consistent about kind of getting, top 15 finishes, getting consistent runs put together, trying to get a little bit of momentum going into next year, finish the year strong. $7,800 starting in 29th. We've got a pretty good amount of place differential here. He was 11th in single lap and 9th in 10 lap consecutive average. His average finish isn't great at Phoenix, 16.8 average finish, finished 16th in the spring. I'm willing to take a couple shots with Bubba Wallace also. Like I said, you're just going to have to mix and match a few of these guys, and I think Bubba Wallace is one of the better potential plays. So if I'm looking at possible percentages of ownership, I could see at least 10% going to 15, and maybe he ends up getting closer to 20% ownership. So it all depends on who you end up having in your lineups that are the cheap options and how expensive you go on the top side of your lineups. Alex Bowman, $7,700 starting in 16th. This kind of looks like it's about a 16th. I think this is kind of a finish where you start type of race, especially when we look at all the averages. He was 13th in single lap practice. He was 16th in 10 lap consecutive average. He has an 18.8 average finish over the last 5 races. He finished 20th here in the spring, and out of his 18 total starts here, he's got a 22nd place average finish. None of those are top 10. Starting in 16th, I'm going to need Alex Bowman to at least get a top 10. Now, he also, for this year, I think, might hold the most amount of top 10s of any of the drivers. Chase Elliott might be right there with him. But I'm not sure he gets much better than 10th. So do I think 6 spots of place differentials is enough at $7,700? Not really 100% sure. $7,500 here for Austin Cindric, starting in 11th. He was 5th in single lap, 7th in 10 lap consecutive average. And if we look at his other averages, they're not great. One top 20 out of the last 5 races here, the 26.2. But this is what we've seen at almost every track so far, other than the super speedways, that we've seen in the last 10 races. His average finishes have been awful. And in the last 10 weeks, he has flipped a switch. I don't know what switch they flipped, and they flipped at Penske. But, Cindric's been fast. Blaney's been pretty good in these playoffs. Joey Logano has done what he needed to make the Final Four. But Cindric, out of all of the Penske guys, probably has been the most consistent driver over the last 10 weeks. What does that look like? Find that real quick. Series trends. Look at the trend line real quick. Austin Cindric has a average finish of 18.1 for the last 10 races. Ryan Blaney's at a 17.2, so really close. And Joey Logano is at 14.6. But your absolute best average finish is 16.9 by Christopher Bell. And this is over the last 10 races of this season. Alex Bowman's got 11.6. Zane Smith at an 18.3. That's kind of an interesting one to look at. Ryan Preece at a 16.9. Suarez at a 17.6. Bubba Wallace at a 14.8. But Cindric's 18 points, so he's not quite as good as his Penske teammates, but he's been compared to where he used to be, kind of like where Josh Berry is at 26.1. He used to be just awful. But starting 11th, not a ton of place differential, but I think he can kind of hold serve. And at 7,500, I think that ends up being potentially playable. No, James, I appreciate you tuning in every week. It's always good to have somebody to chat with, and kind of something a little different with your Survivor League, along with the Draftkings stuff that I do and things of that nature. It's always kind of fun to kind of think about, all right, if who's left, those types of things. So, but Austin Cindric, I could see fading him. I could see playing him. I could also see where he becomes very pivotal for the other two Penske drivers to potentially win a championship. So I don't mind taking a little bit of DraftKings ownership, but I also think he's a really good play for James. I think between Cindric, Briscoe, and Buescher, all three of them are really probably decent plays. Josh Berry, who spun out during qualifying, $7,400, starting in 39th. His average finish here is 18th for the two starts that he does have. He finished 26th here in the spring. The other thing to remember, Josh Berry raced Richmond very, very well. High tire wear, very similar style track, very slick. And he's starting in 39th. Buyer beware, he's going to be very highly owned. Especially at $7,400, there does become value play here. You can easily fit a Josh Berry in with two high-end price drivers, championship drivers, one driver that's in that low $9,000, high $8,000 range, and then you go and pluck out two guys that are kind of in the $5,600 to $7,000 range. And it ends up kind of fitting. So Josh Berry is definitely, with his price tag, a big value play, ton of place differential. But I've also seen somebody like this be super highly owned, and they have one mistake, a tire blowout, or whatever, and Josh Berry has been very known to do that this year. He's very, very prone. So it's a little bit risky, but it is kind of one of the higher. He's going to be highly owned, so I can see being very contrarian there. Kind of like with Daniel Suarez. I mean, we just saw that Daniel Suarez is probably, he's probably top 10 of average finish over the last 10 races. 19th in single lap practice, 29th in 10 lap long run speed. He's starting in 34th. His average finish over the last 5 races here is 15.8, but starting in 34th, I mean, all you need it for $7,200. All I need you to do is go finish between 15th and 20th, and that ends up probably fitting very close to either top 15, top 10 in DraftKings points, maybe potentially all depending on how things fall out, maybe optimal lineup. Easily Austin Dillon's another one that is absolutely in play. Do I think Austin Dillon's finishing in 36? No. This track is very, very similar to Richmond, where Austin Dillon did get his one win. It did not qualify him for the playoffs because he booted Joey Logano out of the way. But $7,000 starting in 36. His practice speeds were not anything to talk about. He was 33rd in single lap, 24th in 10 lap. But starting in 36, I mean, there's room. There's upward. There's ceiling. The ceiling on him is pretty high. He's got an 18.8 average finish. And, I mean, literally go out and finish 18th. That's going to put him pretty close to being at least top 15 in the optimal lineup. And that's kind of the tricky part is you've got an Austin Dillon starting in 36. And like I said, my chart averaged over for the last 4 races that we're looking at, only once in the top 15 in points did somebody start 31st or worse. Well, we're talking about we've got an Austin Dillon, we've got a Daniel Suarez, and we got a Josh Berry all starting in the 30s. So, and a Ryan Preece, who's been one of the better drivers here towards the tail end of the year. $6,900 starting in 33rd. His practice speeds were kind of like right there with Ross Chastain. Not Ross Chastain, but Ryan Blaney. No, sorry. With Josh Berry. It's getting late. Practice speeds weren't great. Qualifying wasn't great. But he's got a 16.3 average finish over the last 5 races here. And he finished 23rd here in the spring. At 6,900, there's value. He's got some upward mobility with a decent finish and getting some place differential. Question is, does it end up fitting in a lineup? I don't mind probably running some Ryan Preece. I think you kind of mix and match the last 4 guys in different lineups. Just kind of see what plays out. Noah Gragson, 6,800. I think kind of Noah kind of finishes where he starts. 6,800, starting in 21st. His single lap speed was 28th in practice, 32nd on 10 lap consecutive run. He's got a 20.5 average finish over the last 5 races here, and he finished 12th in the spring. That's probably the highlight of all of the stats we're looking at, but from 21st to 12th, I don't know if that's enough when literally the person right above and his teammate Ryan Preece is starting 33rd and has a better average finish. So, Carson Hocevar, who has been the surprise rookie of the year, not really surprised that he was rookie of the year. He didn't have a whole lot of stiff competition, but how well he's been racing throughout this entire year. Even though he's been kind of a bowling ball, I get that. But he's still able to finish races in decent position. And he's got a held position. Do we think he's going to do it again this week? Maybe. He proves me wrong almost every week. At $6,700 starting in 15th, I think he kind of finishes where he starts. And I don't think that's enough for Draftkings Worlds. And starting 15th, you're going to need to finish at least top 10 at 6,700 to really make value worth taking. So I think he kind of finishes where he starts, which will end up being a pretty good year. He's going to get Rookie of the Year titles. Even though he bowled over half the field at some point this year. But either way, it's going to be fun to watch Carson Hocevar, number one, to find out if he has a sophomore slump next year, or can he buck that trend and end up having a decent year next year. He's going to be a fun one to kind of keep an eye on. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 6,500 starting in 30th. Out of all the guys that are kind of starting in the 30s, I don't really like the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. play. 27th in single lap. He did not do a 10-lap consecutive run. 24.6 average finish over the last 5 races here. Finished in 21st and 23 total starts. He's only got 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, but the 20.4 average finish. And I don't think 10 spots of place differential to finish 20th at 6,500 is enough of a value play. I don't know how good of a play the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. really looks at, especially when you've got a Michael McDowell who's got a 16.4 average finish over the last 5 races and is starting 35th, and he was faster in practice at 25th in single lap, 23rd in 10-lap consecutive average, and he finished 8th here in the spring. Michael McDowell is going to probably he'll get into play more than Ricky Stenhouse Jr., but also looking at that possibility, he's probably going to be more highly owned. So, take that for what it is. You could be contrarian and play Stenhouse, or you can kind of go more with what the field's going to be at and probably take on Michael McDowell. Todd Gillen, I like to make Michael McDowell play better than I like the Todd Gillen play. Gillen starting in 32nd. He was 30th in single lap, 33rd in 10-lap consecutive average. Out of the 5 races that he started here, he's got a 25.4 average finish, and it was 17th here in the spring. Sure, there's some place differential potential here with Todd Gillen. I just don't think his ceiling's much better than 20th. And is 12 points enough? Maybe, probably not, though. Eric Jones, 6,100, starting in 19th. And once again, why? Because Legacy Motorsports, he only did 39 laps of practice, which is a little better than others, but you got guys that had practice laps well into the 50s of not getting close to 60, and you only have 39. and you kind of practice where you qualified. So without some attrition, and Phoenix doesn't have typically a whole lot of attrition. I don't think Martinsville doesn't have a whole lot of attrition either. We saw that last week. I think Eric Jones kind of finishes where he starts. And there's not a whole lot of place differential potential with Eric Jones. I mean, sure, crazy things happen, but I think 18th in single lap practice, 21st in 10 lap consecutive average. He's got a 22.2 average finish, finished 31st in the spring, and he's starting in 19th. All those things say you're just going to finish where you start. So I don't think I've got a whole lot of interest in Eric Jones. Same thing with John Hunter Nemechek. He actually did much better in qualifying than he did in practice, which is a little scary. 34th in single lap. Once again, not a ton of laps for this Legacy Motor Club. 39 total laps of practice. He's got an average finish of 25th, but that's only one start. And if we go back further in time before the next gen area, he's got a 25.8 average finish. So nothing on here makes me go, ooh, we need to take a John Hunter Nemechek. Zane Smith has been performing above his average finishing position these last 10 weeks. Number one, he's hunting for a ride. He's trying to not go into partnership with Chandler Smith and start Smith & Smith construction next year. They both want to go race, and they both need a contract. So Zane Smith is kind of running for his proverbial career at this point. 5,900 starting in 28th. 14th in single lap, 17th in 10 lap. I do like the Zane Smith play. I think he's probably going to end up somewhere just inside the top 20, maybe like a 16th, 17th place finish at 5,900. That's almost in play for value. So I'll have some Zane Smith. I don't mind that play at all. Justin Haley, $5,700. Outkit your coverage, buddy. Sorry to hate to tell you that. 26th in single lap, 31st in 10 lap consecutive average. Has an average finish of 24.8 in the next gen era. Only one top 20. Yeah, he just outkicked his coverage. I don't have a whole lot of interest there. Corey LaJoie, honestly, outkicked his coverage also, because if we look at his last 5 races here at Phoenix, it's a 28.8 average finish. That's almost the worst average finish we've come to at this point. And starting in 20th, it just becomes too much of a risk, in my opinion. He finished 33rd here in the spring race, and out of his 14 total starts, only one top 20 with a 31.1 average finish. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of interest in Corey LaJoie this week. I doubt anybody else will either. Jimmy Johnson, 5,400, starting in 23rd, when, once again, Legacy only did 36 laps of practice. And it was 35th and 35th. Single lap and 10 lap consecutive average. Now, if we look at his total stats here, he's never raced the next gen era car here, so we have no stats for that. 35 total starts, which go back at least until 2021 and prior. He's got a 9.1 average finish. Great, but how many times have we seen Jimmy Johnson have these great stellar stats, which he always has, and then just go out and run 33rd all day? I think that's kind of where we're at. I think he's just getting data information for next year for Legacy Motor Club. And it gives him the ability to kind of really talk to the engineers and the drivers and kind of see where things need to fall for next year and going into next year in the offseason. So I think Jimmy Johnson is actually starting too far up for me to have much of an interest. Harrison Burton way outkicked his coverage. Even though he's part of the Team Penske crew, I understand why they had some speed. Starting in 9th, he was 12th in single lap, 14th in 10 lap consecutive average, so pretty good, but he did 61 laps of practice. That's what I'm talking about when literally you've got the legacy guys who are not very good, probably are trying to find speed and trying to gather information. You have a Harrison Burton who goes out and runs 61 laps of practice. A third more than what those guys are running. I don't understand it. But his average finish here is 27.2, and that's for 5 races here at Phoenix. And he's starting in 9th. Same thing. He outkicked his coverage at Martinsville last week, and he ended up having a really bad day. So I think he ends up in the same spot. No interest there. Daniel Hemrick, he kind of finishes where he starts, but starting 22nd at 5,100 almost puts him kind of in play, but it's a very risky play starting in 22nd. Out of 4 total starts here, he's got a 21st place average finish. Over the last 2 starts in the next gen era, he's got a 22.5. There's more risk than potential reward. I don't know if I love that play. So, I mean, this is where it gets really tricky because you don't have anybody really $5,400 and cheaper who are really in play. So it's going to limit what you can do on the upper side of your lineups. Cosgralla, $5,000, starting 31st. He's just starting a little bit further up than I would like. He was 37th in single lap, 34th in 10 lap consecutive average. He finished 30th here in the spring race. Yeah, I just don't think he gets any better than 31st. Unless we have huge amounts of attrition. Derek Kraus, $4,800, starting 26th. He finished 35th in this race in the spring. To be honest, he outkicked his coverage at $4,800. I just don't see any upside. I don't see how he finishes better than 26. So he's going to end up losing points as he goes further back in the pack. And I just don't think he finishes better than 26. Jeb Burton, still listed as starting in 40th. Not one lap of practice, not one lap of qualifying, is pretty much taking a provisional 40th place starting spot. At this point, he'll be lucky to make it 100 laps in this race. I don't understand what's going on or why. I'm fully expecting them to withdraw their car tomorrow. They have not turned a lap yet. Will the car even start? I don't know. So I have no interest in taking Jeb Burton. Chad Fincham, 4,600. Yeah, he has little to no experience in the next gen era. He's done some Xfinity races and some truck races. He's starting in 38th. His practice speeds were 39th. Poor Jeb. I mean, I don't honestly, I have no earthly idea why it's even listed in any of it. Like I said, I haven't even seen a picture of the damn car. I'm not sure they unloaded it from the truck at this point. So there's no reason there's no reason I'm taking a Jeb. There's also no reason I'm taking a Chad Fincham. He was awful in practice. Did not qualify very well. No interest here for poor Chad either. JJ Yaley, same boat. And this car's it's super slow. They don't have any engineering that goes in this car. They don't have any way to really set this car up for it to do anything. And once again, Phoenix is not one of those races that we see mass amounts of attrition. So I don't have any interest in JJ Yaley either. He did finish 27th once here a long time ago. I don't know. I'm not even sure when he did this. It was not in the spring. It may have been last fall. I don't know. But 5 total starts, he's got a 30th place average finish. Just don't have any interest there. Yeah, I mean, pretty much anybody in this orange down here, I don't have any interest in. So we're literally going to eliminate, and Jeb Burton I didn't even put in here. There's 10 guys I'm going to eliminate right off the bat. Eric Jones, Corey LaJoy, Justin Haley, Daniel Hammer, John Hunter Nemechek, Derek Kraus, Cosgralla, Harrison Burton. So now we're just looking at the 30 drivers or so up here. And I mean, honestly, you can eliminate, in my opinion, unless you think Martin Truex Jr. is going to go and lead 100 plus laps, you just have to take Martin Truex Jr. out. Ty Gibbs has had gremlins and monsters in his car for weeks now. I just don't trust it. And and then you can kind of go up through here. I mean, Tyler Reddick, this is not one of his better tracks. Joey Logano is not one of the better tracks, but they're both racing for a championship, and that kind of turns the wick up a little bit and really puts everybody kind of on it's go time. So with those being in play, does that end up changing a Chase Elliott or Ross Chastain? Well, I mean, not necessarily for Ross, because Ross could care less. He showed that last year. He could care less who's running for a championship. He wanted to win the race. And he and Ryan Blaney almost went to blows over it. But because Ryan ended up winning the championship, that kind of settled down pretty quick. Zane Smith, fighting for his career and racing life, is definitely in play. He came in ranked 28th, but I think he's a better play than Noah Gragson or Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Austin Dillon starting far enough back that he's in play for DraftKings. I think he's maybe potentially a 20th-ish driver. And 16 spots, a place differential at 7,000 is probably enough value. Carson Osvard scares the crud out of me. Josh Berry, I mean, of course, Josh Berry could go spin it out in first lap, hit the wall, and be done for the day. And finish 39th. Or finish 40th if Jeb Burton happens to make a lap. I don't know. So, buyer beware with the Josh Berry play. It almost seems too good to be true type thing. I definitely, probably my favorite play starting 30th or worst is the Michael McDowell play. But I think he is a 15th to 18th place driver. I really like the Bubba Wallace play starting in 29th. The Chris Buescher play starting in 24th. And then you kind of mix and match. Any of these guys on this right side or this left side over here, Blaney, Larson, Bell, Byron, the same old group every week that are the cream rises to the top. I don't mind any of those. So that kind of wraps us up for the final episode of Racing in the Draft for the 2024 season. I do appreciate all of the people coming and listening. We're missing Miley Virus. I know where Matt is. He's doing NFL stuff, but I appreciate James and Wyatt always tuning in every week and kind of giving their feedback. I definitely will be back as long as God willing, and the creek doesn't rise. I plan on being here all next year again, probably doing most of this Saturday night, evening type stuff. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. Yeah, you're more than welcome, James. Hopefully you can take home a bag before the end of the year. I'm hoping I can recover some of my losses from today, as both betting in the world of college football and DraftKings for NASCAR Xfinity Series did not go as planned. So I need a good day to get some winnings to ride through the rest of the NFL season. But either way, and buy some Christmas presents. But either way, I appreciate everybody tuning in. We did reach 100 subscribers. That was kind of cool. I did get that milestone. That was kind of my goal for the end of this year, and we got there last week. So I appreciate our new subscribers. Maybe we can double up and get to 200 next year. Sure. And James, good luck with your Survivor picks. Send me a message. And over the off season, I'm going to try to get the Discord fully up and running. I know I said either to Wyatt or James or somebody last week I was going to get that done. I will post that, I promise, definitely during the off season, if not very shortly after this weekend. I just, with the election and everything else going on this week, I just did not have a chance to really get that where I wanted it. But we'll get it done, and we'll have that available for next season. So more and more things to come, but I appreciate everybody tuning in. Let me know if you hit any prizes this weekend. Good luck, and have a great rest of your 2024 and start to your 2025. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Thanksgiving, all of the things. Have a great time. We will talk to you at some point between now and February. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W, so Gotta be around at the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checker. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby!
Hell yeah.
Proud of you there, Mac. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4, great job, guys. Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal, we got it here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away. Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.